recently, the franchise of Banjo-Kazooie has come up and has made me think what could have been. For those of you who don't know, Banjo-Kazooie was a game that came out for N64. It was June 29th, 1998 for the N64. It was made by Rare, back then known as Rareware, and they were owned by Nintendo. And they made some great games like Diddy Kong Racing, Donkey Kong 64, the Conker games, the Squirrel, and I think there was a few others. But there was one game that they made that even rivaled Sonic and Mario, and that was Banjo-Kazooie. It was one of those games that started as something completely different that involved the Banjo-Kazooie, and it was such a unique concept that if, let's say, someone went up to you and said, "Hey, I got an idea for a game. It's a bear and a bird and they fight a witch," you'd be like, "That's stupid." But they made it work. And for people like me who was a kid back in the 90s, we got this videotape in the mail, and when you put it in, it had a narration from John Lovitz. Weird, huh? About the game, like, "Oh, buy this game, Banjo-Kazooie," and they showed you all the worlds and everything. It got your attention. I was like, yeah, I gotta buy this. I gotta buy this game. I gotta buy this game. I'll put a link to the video in the description. And it was probably one of the best games I've ever played in my life. Rave reviews. It was great. It was fantastic. It got almost perfect scores. Everything about this game was incredible. The music, the characters, and so on. It was just such an imaginative game. And I mean, there were some faults with it. I mean, the graphics weren't that good. I mean, look, the characters themselves didn't have fingers. They all had like these palmed hands because of limitations for N64, especially the voices. Any game for N64, they had limitations when it came to voices. They couldn't really put actual dialogue voices in the game. So what they did was, and this pretty much remained the trait for years, the characters would talk, but they'd go da 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 da, and the words would come out. It was kind of annoying, but it became its trademark. Well, not a trademark, but a signature of the game. But the first game was great, and immediately people were like, "We want a sequel." I mean, they set for a sequel. It's, Grunty swore revenge at the end of the game. So then Banjo-Tooie came out 2 years later, and I don't want to say it was better than Banjo-Kazooie, but it did improve a lot of things that were problematic in the first game. For example, musical notes and Jinjos. If you were to die before you got all of them, you would lose it. The level would reset. Whereas this one, if you collected a Jinjo, a musical note, whatever, you have it. You don't have to go back and get it again, which was a big improvement. And the game was great. I mean, the worlds were a lot bigger. Baddies were a lot tougher. So it pretty much built upon that first game. At the end of the game, Grunty swore revenge. He said, "I'll see you, Banjo 3. I'll get you there." So like, oh crap, there's gonna be a Banjo 3. And then before we know it, Microsoft was like, "Well, no, we're gonna we now own Rare, not Nintendo anymore." What? We were hopeful that there would be a Banjo 3. In the meantime, just waiting, until about 2006, when we saw this little teaser, which hopefully I'll put a link to that in the description, where they were showing a much different looking Banjo-Kazooie just walking around a room, open the door, and they see Spiral Mountain. There's some jiggy honeycomb pieces, musical note. Oh my god, it's Banjo-Kazooie's coming back. When's it gonna be out? Not for another 2 years. What the fuck? Wait 2 more years? Oh. Well, at least we're gonna get the platforming, kick-ass Banjo-Kazooie game like Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie, right? Microsoft was like, and Rare was like, well, no. We're gonna give you a game where you're running vehicles. Vehicles? Yeah, vehicles. Alright, well, as long as Mumbo Jumbo Humbo Wumbo are still casting their spells and everything, this should be a great game. They're like, well, No, Mumbo Jumbo, he's gonna be a mechanic, and Humble Mama is gonna sell you blueprints. Alright. At least we get to collect, you know, find the Jinjos and learn new moves and everything. Well, nah. You get new parts for your vehicles, and Jinjos challenge you to mini-games. I mean, I did play the game, but it was like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The first two games were great, but you didn't have to change so much for the third game. We wanted a Banjo 3, not a Banjo-Kazooie nuts and bolts. Speaking of which, why the fuck did they not just call it Banjo 3, for that matter? Whatever, I really don't get that part either. I really hate the fact they changed the game, and I think because of that, it kind of killed the momentum of the Banjo-Kazooie franchise, because ever since that game came out, there's been no talks of another Banjo-Kazooie game. Which pisses me off, because what's the point of owning a franchise if you're not going to do anything with it? I mean, like I said before, this franchise rivaled Sonic and Mario. This had the chance to become even better than those two, but they let it fall through their fingertips, which really pissed me off. And if they can make 100,000 Mario games, 20 million Sonic games, and a trillion Call of Duty games, can they not make a fourth Banjo-Kazooie game? A lot of games that come out today are just, you know, same old, same old. At least Banjo-Kazooie was such a unique concept, a unique platformer. And you don't really see many platformer games nowadays. It's all about, you know, oh, gotta take my guns, gotta shoot, I gotta fight this war with these guys, and the guys are fighting me. And I mean, video games were like the best when I was a kid. All different varieties, you know, this and that, this and that. Now it's like they all look the same. I mean, right now for my Xbox One, all I have is that Marvel game. I mean, there's some good, unique games coming out, like, I mean, they're changing up the WWE 2K15, Batman Arkham Knight. Those are great games. I mean, they're so different. I wish, from the bottom of my heart, that Rare and Microsoft could get their shit together and make another Banjo-Kazooie game. The fans deserve it. Make it for the Xbox One. Make the Banjo 3, or at least a better sequel to Nuts and Bolts. Because, heck, even at the end of the game, Grunty was like, I swear I'm gonna get revenge again. Not in those words, but she, you know, swearing that she's gonna get back at them. I'm not sure if this is true, but I looked it up online, and there's this picture of a GameCube cover with Banjo 3 on it. I'm not sure if that's the real deal, but this would have been a better story from what this says. Like I said, I'm not sure if this is true, but it looks like it could have been true. It says, Rare's Bear and Bird duo blast back, looking better than ever before on GameCube. The evil Grunty has kidnapped Humba-Wumba the Shaman to clone herself a beautiful new body, and it's up to Banjo and Kazooie to get her back. Travel through exciting and colorful world, interact with a host of crazy characters, and prepare to experience a whole new depth of gameplay with a new playable character including Banjo's younger sister. 15 dazzling worlds, from the jungle depths of Afro-Amazon to the scorching heights of Mount Fire-Eyes. A variety of fun characters and over 70 moves to play with. A blast from the past will leave N64 fans delighted. Now, doesn't that sound like that could have been a better game than Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts? If this wasn't true, it still would have been a hell of a lot better. And you have to play as Tootie, who hasn't been seen since Banjo-Kazooie. No one knows what the hell she is. Also, the Lord of Games character in Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts was so annoying. I mean, I know they kept breaking the fourth wall in Banjo-Kazooie, but you didn't have to really go all out and say, oh, I created the game world. And I'm like, that just ruins the fantasy. That's pretty much like a dream within a dream. Okay, come up with a better game. From what I've heard bits and pieces, you know, before they made this game, that rumor was Grunty was somehow going to, I'm not sure how, but would have zapped the entire island with that that gun, the B.O.B. blaster. Zapped the entire island. The islands had to go to chaos, and so on and so forth. Right there, that could have been better. At least for the most part, in Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, they did acknowledge the past with like Banjo Land, which was like, oh, look at all this stuff from Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie. At least it paid homage to that. At least they acknowledged where it came from, but unfortunately, I didn't know where the hell it was going. Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts is like the Dark Knight Rises of video games. They thought they could do no wrong. They did. In the long run, it was a really bad decision to go that way. They should have just stuck what brought them to the dance and went with it. Because I've worked for Mario, you know, all those cars and stuff, but they didn't disguise a Mario game and say, oh, it's a racing game. They said, oh, by the way, Mario Kart is a racing game. Mario 64 is a platformer. Let's face it, guys like me need this. What's the point of owning a franchise if you can do nothing with it?